my topic is called Why Smart People Get Stuck. So it was a 6-month project. It was 2009. I just published my last book called Upbeat. And then I thought I meet a lot of very smart people, and most of them say, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck there. I thought it will be a good book. So I'll just do some research in 6 months. I'll publish a book and then I'll be over with. So little did I know that I'll get stuck myself in finding out why smart people get stuck, because most smart people don't get stuck for one reason. They get stuck for many, many reasons. So a 6-month research project became a 4-year project. So I have 50,000 words on why people get stuck and everything. So I will just go through an excerpt from the upcoming book. So everyone knows that your greatest asset and your greatest liability is you. So most of the time it is you who will get stuck in the process of doing something. So I chose a few things. I wanted to pick about 7 things which are why people get stuck when they want to change, or when they want to take action, when they want to communicate, share, or sometimes people take for granted. And I will give some, sorry, 1 second. Then I will cover the strengths and likability. So those 2 are the green, 5 red and 2 greens. So let's start with the first one. Why is change hard for many people? So people know that they need to change, and they still don't change. Why is it that change is hard? So it starts with, I'm an engineer by studies, so there will be a lot of graphs and everything. So the first thing is, on y-axis we have control on short-term outcomes. If you are doing something that you are already done for a very long time, you will have a very high control on short-term outcomes. If you are a singer, then you know how your singing will be received and what will you say. If you are a chess player, you will know what to do, what moves to make and everything. But if you are learning something new in your area of discomfort, the control on short-term outcomes will be very small. But as time progresses, you will become better at it. So if you see, the comparison is very simple. But every now and then, there are inflection points. As you are getting frustrated and frustrated, sometimes if it becomes too much, you will jump back to what you already know, where you have higher control on short-term outcomes. That's why change is hard. So what can you do is basically have very little expectation when you are in the area of discomfort, because you have a lower expectation that you will perform like a master, then you will continue to persist. The next one is why people don't take action when they know that they should take action. Like, I need to take action, let's say start a company. There were several entrepreneurs. Why don't they start a company like right now, today, right? So it starts with some core skill. They think they need it. If I want to start a company, I need to know something about sales. Why they think that way? For whatever reason, they'll think some core skill and said, as soon as I get some threshold capacity in that core skill, I think I'm ready to start a company, right? And then they will compare themselves with the current capacity. If they don't know about sales, everybody knows a little bit about sales because they have sold something to someone somewhere. Maybe they don't call it sales, but they have done it. And then they compare. Right now, I am at level 3. I have to go to level 7. And as soon as I go to level 7, I'm ready to start. But then this happens. This is from Jeffrey Pfeffer. And the quote is very insightful. It says, in order to know your level of incompetence on a topic, you need to be reasonably competent on that topic. Right? Otherwise, you don't know how much you don't know. And that happens, and then 1 month later, they will start studying to reach the threshold capacity. They will think, oh my God, my threshold capacity estimate was wrong. I need to know not 7 out of 10, 70 out of 10. So then they start working feverishly. Then it becomes T plus 3 months. They keep increasing the capacity, and they keep moving the goal as to when they are ready to start. They keep doing it. And 6 months later, their capacity has increased, but they think, I need to a little bit more. And if you compare to the previous capacity to current capacity, it's a huge difference. But it's still not there because their mind has expanded to include a lot more things that I need to learn those kinds of things. But I made it very simplistic But when a startup or being an entrepreneur or anything, they don't start with one. They start with many. I need to learn sales. I need to learn some marketing, some little bit of finance, and then I need to do some networking, some product validation, customer development. There are lots of things. I had to study it, and then they get overwhelmed. So my suggestion to you, if you are ever stuck with this kind of thing, is to always think that you don't have to do everything yourself. That is where partnerships come in. Because you need to, rather than learning everything about sales, you find a person who is already knowing a lot on sales and say, how can I partner with you, kind of thing. Then the communication. I think many people will relate to this. Why people have trouble communicating well? So think about it. So when you say something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, what do people hear? They will hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But as you become smarter and smarter, you will think out of this 2, 3, 4, 5 is obvious to everyone. So I'll skip it. Like I will say 1, 6, 8. 7 is also obvious. I'll just say 1, 6, 8 quickly, and then everybody will fill in the blanks in the middle. But the problem is people are hearing this 1, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, 7, and then they're thinking, what is he talking about? But the smart people are also very confident in communicating. So they will not only compress it, they will say it confidently, and what do you think? The other person thinks, I think I have to tell him it's a great idea. They'll say, yeah, it's great. It's very good. Now it becomes consistent because person A told 168 is good, which means 168 is good because 2, 3, 4, 5 were obvious. So I will just use 168, and they keep doing it until some mentor or somebody really, somebody they respect come and say, I don't know what the hell you are talking. Please explain to me what happened to 2, 3, 4, 5. And then extremely smart, but they were not blogging. And I always, why don't you do it? Because you can do it. And some of them were very trivial. This, I hate writing and all those things, but we know that that is not the real reason. But here is the real reason. So on y-axis we have skill and time. When you are learning something new, that is the current skill level. Like it's something very current. So you yourself are not very comfortable sharing it because you don't have a handle on it, right? But as you progress, whatever was the current skill is something new, but whatever was current before becomes an obvious skill. Because you think, this everybody should know. There is nothing to share. So something that is current, you are not comfortable. Something you were comfortable before, now, you think everybody knows it. So that there is no need to share. But it gets even worse. As you keep learning, there is some current skill. Just right before that current skill is the obvious skills that you don't need to share. And the first time you learn, like when you learned how to walk, drive, and talk and everything, that becomes background skills. That means you don't even know it exists. It's there, but it's invisible. And from now on, it becomes like that. So the latest one is current skill, not very comfortable yourself, nothing to share. The previous one is obvious. Previous to that, everything else is background knowledge. It just keeps on going there. And after some time, you are always thinking, when I am fully there, I will share it. But there is nothing to share because either it's obvious or background knowledge. So always my theory is that when you always think that you started somewhere, and at that time, you needed something. So you Googled and then you learned from other people. Somebody else is there at that stage where you started a few years ago or a few months ago. So you can start sharing for those people. The biggest problem with smart people is they're always thinking, what will I share? Because everybody else that I'm also is very smart, and if I say something very obvious, they'll think, why are you telling me this? I already know it. So rather than that, you start sharing for people with a time lag, like few years how you were at their stage. Now this one, I chose this. I have about 40 items on why smart people get stuck. I chose this because it's very subtle, and it's why people take other people for granted and how it hurts them. And coming from the Silicon Valley is a very, very small place. You take someone for granted, it will be a disaster for the rest of your career. And I want to first tell the background concept of what I call as a power triangle. So when you start from the bottom of the pyramid, right, you don't know enough about things. So as you start moving up in the power scale, there is something called as the influence triangle. So when you are here, you don't know enough. So the influence that you have is zero because you don't know enough about it. As you keep moving up, the influence keeps growing. And it depends. Some people decide to have a large influence. Some people just do it on their own, just not talk to anyone else. So the influence triangle changes differently. So for you, it may be of this size. For somebody else, it may be bigger. Somebody else, it's smaller, very big. So it depends. Only you will know what your influence triangle will look like. It's always inverted compared to the power triangle. But let's see when people take other people for granted. So as they move up the power curve, right? So you see that along the way, they are having a partnership with John or a co-worker or colleague or anything. They take John for granted. Along the way, they meet Bob and they take Bob for granted. When I say take for granted, it can be as simple as you taking credit when it is not due or not giving credit when it is due. It could be as simple as that. And then they take advantage of Nancy as well. But in a very simplistic mathematics, you will think that, hey, along the way he was growing to be a CEO, he took advantage of 4 people. So he lost 4 people. It's actually not true because this is John's influence network. So when you take advantage of John, you lose John and his network. Because John is not going to endorse dealing with you because he says, all the people that I know, I will warn people that be careful with this person. When you go to Bob, you lose Bob's network. When you go take advantage of Ted, you lose Ted's network and Nancy's network. Very soon, when you are in trouble, somewhere when you need the most help, your ecosystem has eroded to such an extent that you won't get the good help. Right? So my suggestion is that it is not worth taking advantage of anyone at any point in time, at any point in your career, because you are not losing that person, you are losing the person and his network and his network's network. Right? Now let's go to the positive side, right, which is basically how to focus on your strengths, right? So dumb question will be like, should we focus on the strengths? Everybody knows that we should focus on the strengths. But how do we know? How do we identify our strengths? Because your greatest strengths are usually invisible to you. Because you do it so well, you are not even thinking it's a strength because you do it so naturally. Like, how do you find out what are your strengths? There are 7 ways you can find out. First is from your journals. Like, if you are not writing a journal, I urge all of you to write it because it's a reflection time. And also, what will you write about? You will write what resonates with you, which is usually in the area of your strengths. Then from your notes. So from your notes, again, if you are taking notes in this session, you will not be taking notes word by word. You will take notes in the areas that resonate very well with you. So that's a clue to your strength. Then why are your mentors? Mentors are very important. Why? Because they can see a strength in you that you don't see in yourself. Because they are observing you, they care for you and everything. If you don't have a mentor, I suggest you have at least 3 or 4 of them because it's worth it. So asking competent people who care. I underlined competent because this is not a question you ask your mom or your brother or sister and do you think I'm cool in this area? Do you think I'm very strong in this? What will people that love you will say? They will say, yeah, I think you're really good. But they may not be competent in that area. If you want to just pat in the back, you're feeling a little bit low and everything. So then you can ask your brother, close friend and anything, I need a pat on the back. Just tell me I'm really good at this. And they will tell you are really good at this. But it won't help you. Best is to get the reality, a dose of reality from people that you know are good and they say it as it is. It's better to know things right there. Noticing when you are in the flow. Flow means when you are doing an activity and you lose track of time. Right? Very rarely you lose track of time in the area of your weaknesses. The time does not even go by when you are doing something you are weak at. But when you are doing something, you are enjoying it, when you are very strong in it, you lose track of time. You just have to keep checking yourself. Whenever you make a statement, something, I don't know, I thought it's only 20 minutes, but it was 2 hours. That's a clue to your strength. And noticing what you notice and noticing what you don't notice. Now this seems like I lost it, right? Because how do you notice what you don't notice? How can it be possible? It's when you start comparing notes with each other. Let's say you go to a book club and then everybody is reading the same book and everybody says, 3 things that I learned from this book. I will bet that none of the 3 things, not all of them will be the same for everybody in the book club, right? That is when you start noticing things that you don't notice, because somebody else got 3 things which is very different from yours. That means they notice something else different, right? The biggest one is noticing the requests that are made off of you. This is, if you forget all the other 6 things, this one alone will be a biggest clue to your strength. If you are good at marketing, or if you suck at marketing, it's very unlikely that somebody will come and ask you advice on marketing, right? So they will say, I know you are bad at marketing, but I don't have anybody else to ask, but can you help me with this marketing project? They don't say it. But if you're good at marketing, most of the requests that come to you are in the market. You may not be playing the marketing role, but you are good at it. So all you have to do is, you can do this exercise in the talks that I've given before. Right during the talk, if it was a workshop, we do it right there, where you go back to your inbox for the last 6 months and search for, can you help me with this? So some keywords that are requests, that are clue to your request, and you find out, you make an inventory of keywords, and you will notice something very insightful, because your core strengths are invisible to you, but the requests bring it to the forefront, because other people are telling you that this is where you are good at, help me here, kind of thing. Next is about likability. This is the woo-woo stuff, right? Because people say likability and all this is all touchy-feely kind of thing. But I'll tell you, there is a practical reason to be likable. Not just because it's a nice thing to do and all those things, but I'll go through something. So on the y-axis, there is a capacity to contribute. On the x-axis is time. As you grow, for me, power is enhanced ability to contribute, do good in the world. That's what is power for me. So as you grow, as time progresses, people usually move in tribes. So that means at any point in time, your close friends have almost similar capacity to contribute. It can be money or anything, but just think that it's the ability to make things happen. You are at the same level, because if you are not, you will feel out of place. Because everybody is moving at 100 kilometers per hour, and you are at 10 like snail pace. They will run out of patience, or you will run out of patience. You will go to a different tribe. But as you move along, again, it keeps happening in tribes. You keep moving. Some people will go out of tribes. Some people will walk into the tribes. But it keeps extending. But if you are really, really likable, something phenomenal happens. You can jump the tribe. Because people say, he's not at our capacity. He's super nice. Let him be here. So when you get an access to a tribe that is 1 level or 2 levels higher than you, what happens? You start entering into conversations that are right for that level of tribe. Very soon you become part of the tribe without your knowledge, because the conversations are what makes you. Because the internal conversations, external conversations, together it will make you. So, and then very soon you start jumping tribes, and very soon, sooner than later, your capacity to contribute has grown in an accelerated fashion. That for me is the practical reason to be likable, because you get access to tribes that you would not have got because of your current capacity. The bonus is about the you part, the middle part, is about, there are 2 things, the ultimate question and the bottom line. The ultimate question is this: smart, not smart or anything. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself this question: how big of a void will you create when you are finally gone, right? So today, suddenly you disappear from the planet, or I disappear from the planet, there will be a void that is created, because all the things that we are doing ultimately is for a purpose and meaning. Only you will know how big of a void will you create. If you don't have, if the size of that void is not to your satisfaction, you can do something right today, right? That's the ultimate question. You keep asking this. My mentor told me long ago to ask this question every single week. So, and if I have not changed the size of that void in that week, then what have I done in that week? Nothing major, right? So it will force me to reflect on it. But the lasting impression is the last part that I want to cover. The ultimate lasting impression when the other person misses you in the past. So you see, in your life, you will find someone, that you meet your teacher or your mentor or a co-worker or your boss or anyone, and they make such a big impact in your life, and you wish you met them a few years before you met them. Like you say, you made such a profound impact. I just wish. It could be an author of a book. It could be a friend. You always wish you missed them in their past. But it's the same way, even for you, if you ask this question, how many people miss you in their past, right? If it is 0, then we are in big trouble, because I don't think in this room there is anybody will say 0, because then it's an emergency situation. But most of the time it will be a handful of numbers. Nobody has done something so profound that they will say, yeah, how many people missed me in the past? About 1.43 million. So we can't say that number yet. But every single day we live, we could make a difference to this number by the way we contribute and make a difference in people's lives. So in our group, we share this number with each other, and we always ask them, what can we do to make a change in this number? Because for this to happen, if they have to miss us in the past, then the impact has to be so large. Otherwise, it will be, they may miss us in the future, but not in the past. So only you can determine what that number is. For me, this is the magic number. If there is something that you can take away from this talk, it will be this number. That how many people missed me in the past? Is it dozen, 100, 200, 1,000? So you can make the difference. That's all I